I really don't care what happens to her at all. I don't care. Like everybody they tiptoe around with this social media, but what y'all don't get is that it be real consequence for y'all little flexes, y'all quick flexes for $300 that you need. It be consequence.
The digital age rarely witnesses a truth so blunt, so stripped of PR polish, that it momentarily halts the endless scroll. It began with a single, devastating sentence, one that cut deeper than anyone could have anticipated. Iman Shumpert, a man known for his calm demeanor and his disciplined ability to keep his private life insulated from the messy glare of headlines, had finally reached his limit. When his words landed, they did not merely ripple through the room. They detonated, shattering the carefully maintained silence. This was not a veiled insult thrown from the shadows, nor a subtle dig for the gossip columns to decipher. He looked directly into the heart of the issue and stated it with stark, unadorned clarity. Aaron Pierre could not be trusted, and he was not a role model. The air in the room shifted instantly. These were not words that could be brushed aside as casual venting or dismissed as the heat of the moment frustration of a bitter ex. They were not cryptic lyrics in a song or a vague, philosophical Instagram caption. This was a man who had meticulously built his public image around the pillars of family, loyalty, and presence, choosing to speak from the chest. The delivery was deliberate, and its target was not just Aaron Pierre. It was about something far more significant: the people watching, the children caught in the center of the storm, and the fundamental question of who deserves a place of influence when a family's foundation is on the line. This was a declaration of war, not for territory, but for the souls of his children. For months, there had been whispers, the quiet hum of a narrative brewing just beneath the surface of public consciousness. Ever since Iman and Tiana Taylor decided to part ways, the world had watched, almost eagerly, for cracks to appear in the facade of their once envied union. Their love story had seemed perfect from the outside, a modern-day fairy tale that the culture was deeply invested in believing. They were the dynamic couple who inspired fans, proving that it was possible to balance high-profile careers in music, basketball, and fashion while making love appear unshakable. But behind closed doors, the reality was inevitably more complex, more human, and less forgiving. The end of their marriage was not just a personal tragedy. It was the collapse of a public symbol, leaving a vacuum that gossip and speculation were all too eager to fill. When Aaron Pierre entered the picture, the whispers swelled into a murmur of pointed concern. Initially, he appeared harmless, an ambitious actor with a charming smile, who brought a fresh, positive energy into Tiana's life at a time when she was publicly navigating heartbreak and rediscovering herself. The carefully curated photos seemed warm. Her smile appeared genuine and unforced. To the outside world, it looked as though Tiana had found a supportive partner to hold her hand as she rebuilt. However, as anyone with life experience knows, pictures rarely tell the whole truth. Behind the curtain, the narrative was not so clean. Aaron's charm was undeniable, but it was paired with a sharp, controlling edge that those in the inner circle began to notice. His voice grew disproportionately loud in family conversations that required calm and collaboration. He subtly sought to steer dynamics that were not his to command, acting as an architect in a home he was only a guest in. For Iman, the most agonizing part was not merely the visceral sting of watching another man stand in the place he once occupied. It was observing the subtle, yet profound, ripple effects of that presence on his children's lives. Iman had always prided himself on being a father first, a constant in a world of variables. Regardless of what transpired between him and Tiana, his children were his unwavering anchor. He was a fixture at school events, carried them on his shoulders with a familiar ease, cheered from the sidelines with a focused pride, and ensured they never felt the sting of abandonment. When he began to perceive that Aaron lacked a fundamental understanding of what it meant to nurture, protect, and guide with selflessness, that his involvement came with conditions and an ego that needed feeding, his quiet frustration began to crystallize into something more formidable: a righteous, paternal protectiveness. For a long time, Iman held his tongue, mastering the art of public silence. He endured the speculative interviews, bit back his thoughts as fans dissected his life online, and even dismissed the cautious warnings from mutual friends about Aaron's deeper intentions. But silence does not erase worry. It compounds it, building pressure in the chambers of the heart until an eruption becomes inevitable. That eruption was his public declaration. When he stated that Aaron could not be trusted, it was not a flippant opinion. It was a verdict delivered after a long internal trial of observation and endured unease. The word trust is not a small one. It carries the weight of sacred responsibility, especially when tethered to the well-being of a family and the sanctity of children's lives. To be deemed untrustworthy in that context is to be fundamentally rejected from the inner circle. The second blow that Aaron was not a role model landed with even greater societal force. To be a role model is not about perfection. It is about consistency, integrity, and being a source of positive, reliable influence. In Iman's eyes, Aaron had failed this essential, non-negotiable test. The public reaction was swift and divisive, fracturing across social media platforms in a flood of shock, memes, and heated debates. Some immediately sided with Iman, praising him for his courage and asserting that it was past time someone held Aaron accountable for overstepping. Others accused him of bitterness and jealousy, interpreting his words as a pathetic inability to move on from his past relationship. Yet, to reduce this explosive moment to mere jealousy is to profoundly miss the point. If envy were the core motivation, silence would have been the easier, more strategic path. This was about something more profound: the emotional and psychological safety of his children. Iman was not merely protecting his pride. He was defending his bloodline, a primal instinct that transcends public opinion. This inevitably raises the pivotal question: what had Aaron done to provoke such a definitive and public condemnation? The story twists here, as sources close to the situation began to share fragments of a larger, more troubling picture. Some claimed Aaron had overstepped critical boundaries regarding the children, attempting to assert a disciplinary or guiding role that deliberately undermined Iman's authority. Others suggested a pattern of arrogance, where he carried himself as if the fragile, reconfigured family dynamic revolved around him, displaying a startling lack of awareness for the delicate ecosystem he had entered. Caught in the brutal crossfire was Tiana Taylor, bearing an unimaginable weight. On one side was the man she once loved deeply, the father of her children, demanding she acknowledge the cracks he saw. On the other was the man with whom she was building a new chapter, trying to prove his worth in a world already predisposed to judge him. Her silence became both a shield and a prison, a strategic decision that nonetheless fueled endless speculation about where her loyalties truly lay. Was her quiet a tacit defense of Aaron? Or was it the painful silence of someone trapped between two conflicting realities, fearing that any word she spoke would be weaponized against her? The celebrity world did not remain on the sidelines. Several public figures amplified Iman's statement, sparking broader cultural conversations about the responsibilities and respect required of men who enter families with existing children. Some framed it as a fundamental disrespect to not earn the biological father's trust. Others, seeking clout, simply mocked the drama, turning pain into a punchline. But beneath the noise and the trending hashtags, the core issue remains starkly serious. Who gets to influence the next generation? And what recourse does a parent have when that influence feels toxic? Iman's decision to speak was not a spontaneous, emotional rant of the kind so often posted and deleted in the dead of night. It was a calculated, deliberate warning shot, fired with precision and grim resolve. It was not designed for clout or camera time, but to fight for the most important battle of his life, the well-being of his children and the sanctity of their safe space. It was a powerful reminder that while adults can argue, separate, and move on, children should not be forced to bear the weight of those fractured foundations. They should not have to navigate a landscape of conflicting loyalties or question who truly, selflessly, has their best interests at heart. When Iman drew that line in the sand, he transformed from a quiet man into an unwavering protector. The message was clear: this far, no further. The lingering question now is what happens next. Will Aaron Pierre mount a public defense, attempting to salvage his reputation? Will Tiana break her silence, even if it fans the flames higher? This clash has irrevocably altered the landscape. Words like untrustworthy and not a role model do not simply vanish. They attach themselves to a reputation like burrs, reshaping perception and casting long, persistent shadows. Perhaps that was Iman's ultimate intention, not to destroy, but to erect a boundary and to remind everyone, especially his children, that not every smiling face deserves a crown, and not every loud voice deserves authority. Sometimes protecting your family means risking your own public image, and sometimes the most resonant truth comes from the quietest man finally deciding to speak.